Hello, Yakri here with another Dominions 5 video. So this time I want us to go over Mekone? Mekone? I think it's Mekone. I had a hard time finding a correct pronunciation example of it online. All I know is it's Greek. It sounds vaguely correct. Anyway, so this is pretty cool. Mekone is inspired by the kind of the story of Prometheus, right? There's like this initial meeting where it's going to be decided in Greek mythology, I guess, if or what part of a sacrifice like humans keep versus what the gods keep, right? Like if you're sacrificing an animal, do the gods get like the head, the liver, like the meat of the animal, or not, or whatnot, right? And basically Prometheus, who's the eternal bro to mankind, just dresses up the bones and like useless shit to look really nice, and then puts a pile of meat that's all delicious tasty parts, but like hides it under, I forget what, like the stomach lining of the slaughtered animal or something, so it looks really nasty. And Zeus gets to pick which one the gods are going to keep in the sacrifice and which one the humans get to keep. And so naturally he picks the nice looking bones that are like just fucking not really worth anything, and the humans get to keep all the good bits, thanks to Prometheus. So there's like a little side note that it's kind of implied that Zeus like knew what he was up to and was just looking for an excuse to punish the humans. And alternatively, there's a little suspicion that it's like whatchamacallit, the guy who wrote the story was just trying not to be blasphemous, so, and like the real intent was that Zeus got tricked. Anyway, so that's just like the Wikipedia example of the story. I've heard things similar to that before. I used to read Greek mythology stories as a kid. Anyway, point is that's why the national theme for this nation is Cyclopses, right? Because Prometheus is like the progenitor of the Cyclopes, Cyclopes, or something like that, and you're a fire. You got a big fire theme in your nation, fire earth theme, because, you know, Prometheus gave fire to humans and all that. And it also goes into the national theme of hating the gods and sacred units. And they don't have sacred units because they are the descendants. Yeah, they're descended from an ancient god, which I assume is meant to be Prometheus, right? Because thus the like hatred of the gods, right? And the reference of Mekone. I'm totally pronouncing that wrong. Fuck. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, they've taken upon themselves to rid the world of the gods and men because of the like injustice of the gods. Blah blah blah. Zeus pissed them off pretty much. I wonder if Zeus is going to be like a god option. They probably would. That. Anyway, so getting onto the actual nations, there are a couple interesting things about that nation. This nation, they have some sacred mages, but no sacred troops, and their biggest mage, the Elder Cyclops, is not sacred. The other Cyclops, the Polemarch, is sacred, but not a priest, and they just have these two priests, right? And they're like priests of anti-preaching, so they're inquisitors because their purpose is to like get rid of the dominion of false gods. They've got this national bonus, dominion conflict bonus, so they can win more checks to suppress enemy dominion, making them a little bit better at dominion pushing the other nations. I'm still not convinced it makes them a whole lot of a difference with the current / new, because this was changed during the lifespan of Dominions 4. Dominion mechanics, but it excuse me, does mean that you can pretty easily take like 4 Dominion on this nation. Like, it's kind of sketchy usually, although I like doing it pretty often. On this nation it would probably be relatively easy. 5 Dominion will be quite good, and you're going to push into other people a bit with 5, unless they have 6 or higher, which, you know, there's not a lot of reason to get 6 or higher except for sacred units. Some people may do that anyway because of sacred units, but you know, so that's kind of nice. One thing that's really awkward right off the bat, though, like, so first off, having no sacred troops is a bit of a especially when you don't have like your best mages, or, you know, not particularly, or like it's only this one guy, I guess. Your best mage is not sacred, though. Okay, that's true. So you're in a kind of an awkward position for a mage bless. A troop bless is not going to be particularly useful for you, so you only really need like an expander or scales, right? Expansion and scales help. Maybe you could have a pretender that's scales oriented and then goes like light cross paths to give you some construction options, right? But that puts them in a kind of an odd position already that not a lot of nations are in, where they have like very little bonus for bless options. And then they have this like their forts increase unrest. Now this is actually pretty painful. I played a test game with them. And I was getting really high unrest on my capital and had to patrol it away, even with Order 3 and 25 PD. So, like, I mean, just the starting 25 PD you get, right? So the thing there is that this is going to be a pretty serious penalty, actually, for you. And if you take unrest, this is going to be really rough for you, probably. You're going to have to patrol away really hard the unrest amount that you get. So this is kind of... I'm kind of iffy about this because I'm not sure they get anything that really makes up for how bad this really is, especially to have on your capital, right? It's just super bad to have happening on your capital. Their mages are pretty good, but it's a little bit awkward. Like, Air Earth is fairly fine on these guys. You're going to be able to cast Rain of Stones. You can do some other cool cross path things. The random pathing they get is pretty good and is going to get you a lot of neat random paths. With Master Smith 1, you're going to be able to craft fire boosters, although unfortunately not air boosters unless you're super duper lucky. So that might be something to pick up on a pretender, as one air booster would be enough to craft air boosters on some of your dudes. You've got these guys. You don't have any really... Let's see, cheap recruitable, like, good battle mages. These guys might be your best bet, actually, at 295 gold, I think. Right, because these dudes are 325, you don't really need Priest 2. So yeah, these guys would be like your recruitable battle mages. Well, what about these dudes? Maybe it's these guys, you know, and you just get the fire or earth ones at 195. Yeah, that seems reasonable, right? It's probably those guys, actually. But the Polymarchs are pretty good, too. They're only recruitable in capital, so you really, for off-cap, you just have these two options. Yeah, so it's probably the Epiphore. This dude is just Fire or Earth 1, so you probably don't even recruit this guy. He's got enough modifiers on him that he's not like a super great, cheap research mage. So you just recruit these guys constantly. And you use the Earth 2 or Fire 2 ones for fighting, and the 1/1/1 mages for nothing. You just leave them alone. They research. Let's see here. They have too many cap only troops. I think that's kind of like they have too many cap only mages. They've got 4 cap only mages that really gives you very limited options. Because these are kind of like fighting for being built, right? The Elder Cyclops is super good. This guy is kind of like wrong guy. This guy is kind of a discount thug, right? Combat Caster, I'm not convinced is actually good. I think it might be a penalty because you cast like stupid spells in combat that fatigue you out too much, and so it could be a problem. But you can practically just cast like summon earth power and then go take a province with this dude with no bless, because your base stats are super good, right? Your protection is crazy high, and like your main problem is encumbrance. And if you add on something to that like Iron Skin, right, your base protection is these guys, your natural protection is only 3, so Iron Skin jumps you up 17 natural protection, makes them super good, almost undamageable by PD, right? And if you do anything else, then they just start getting stupid. If you give them any magic items or anything to help them out, like you give them like 1 misc item, right, that's like 5 gems or 10 gems, and they become super good. You can't take a lot of PD on reliably, but you can take small amounts of PD on very reliably, for relatively low cost. Like, these guys can probably take like, what is it? Less than 10 PD they can probably take with no problem with just like Alteration 2. Alteration 2, Conjuration 3, pretty easy. Alteration 3, Conjuration 3, super easy. They become quite good. Well, so let's see. But they actually are not going to be as great of a target for thugging as your Elder Cyclops. They're cheaper, though, and they come with better kit when you don't have access to much construction early on, right? So the Elder Cyclops, though, can potentially cast Mist Form, right? As well as, of course, Iron Skin and, what's it called? summon Earth Power, right, for the fatigue reduction. The base encumbrance on the Elder Cyclops is quite low, and your base hit points are very high. So if you actually give him like armor and a helmet and a weapon and a shield, or maybe just a shield, because the maul, I mean, it's not great, but fuck, anything that gets hit by it is going to die. If the helm, well, the helm can't be a horror helm without a pretender, so I guess I would say you would need to give him a weapon, right? So you give him like the Mace of Eruption, some shield, some helmet, some armor, and he's good to go. And he can take out PD no problem. Just fine for raiding thug work. So that's pretty much your mage lineup. I think is it this guy or the other one? The Archon, yeah, so this guy has your chance for Air 2, which is kind of nice. I might fish for that, right? I guess you can get it with the Elder Cyclops, so maybe just recruit them. But the whole point of this is that you're actually not super excited about your mage lineup, because this guy is like almost quite good, but he's more of like a discount, not that great thug option in the end. I kind of like him, but might not hold up well to players. Elder Cyclops is actually quite good, but he is slow to recruit. He's expensive. He's got non-combat related bonuses, which make him more expensive, right? And he's a little spread out in his paths in a way that makes him not really like a super good cost-effective battle mage, right? And then your off-cap mages are bad. Like, I think that's pretty fair to say. These guys, the Epiphores, are not totally terrible, but they're just, I mean, they're old aged, they are overcosted, and their magic pathing is not always useful for combat even, right? So that's a pretty big problem. Now, looking at their troop lineup, they have some pretty cool things in their troop lineup. I'm just not sure it makes up for their other problems. So you've got the Gigante. Well, anyway, you got the giant hoplites. I'm just going to call them that so I don't just mumble all the time. These guys are pretty neat. 40 gold is a bit pricey, but 30 hit points with 21 protection. Notably, this is 21 protection, and they also have the Hoplon, which is a pretty okay shield. The parry bonus is rather low, but it's it's a magic shield. It's got an okay parry bonus, and it's got a 22 protection value, which is very good. Their encumbrance is kind of high, but they also have magic weapons and formation fighter, and their overall stat line is pretty good, honestly. So the deal with these guys is that they're super duper durable. They're also really durable to projectiles, right? Which aren't even that good in the early era, but these guys are going to be pretty resistant against anything. Flaming arrows, short bows, slingers, no big deal for these dudes. The Ecrodomos version has lighter armor, but they're still pretty good. These guys might be better overall just because they only have encumbrance 4, right? However, they have the Hoplon, and they still have like nice helmets. They're just, their chest armor is a little bit low, but it's still good for the early age. So these are quite nice, and they don't, of course, there's a limit to how much you can recruit of each of these per turn, right? You can only recruit 4 per turn of each, so you might end up recruiting both if you're getting a lot of your giant units. But the fun doesn't stop there. The Helot Hoplites are really interesting. So they have terrible morale because they're slaves, right? But they have great stats for 8 gold, right? They're only 8 gold. They're a human troop. Their stat line is the basic militia stat line, but they have 17 protection, right? With shields and length 4 spears. So that's pretty good. And they've got promotion, right? Which it's kind of going to take a lot of work for it to turn into the higher quality unit. I don't know. I didn't actually get far enough to see what the better stats are. But basically, it's going to turn into a unit that has better stats than this unit eventually, right? Which is just kind of a nice bonus to have on a really cheap unit, right? And you've got Peltists, which aren't terrible. This actually got a mix of both the slave promotion peltists and actually peltists that don't have shit morale. You don't get a troop with non-shit morale, which is at least among your human troops, right? These guys are, what's the difference between these guys? Domos. Did I click on the wrong one? Yeah, I did. Okay, so these guys are it's the same difference, right? These are like the lightweight hoplites. These are probably not quite as nice as your giants because they're still 5 encumbrance. Yeah, these guys are encumbrance 9. But the long and short of it is that you get very heavy infantry that is good, with kind of an asterisk that you have to be careful about managing your morale, and you have to offset it with these Taskmaster leaders. I'm not sure. Let's see. This guy gets Taskmaster +2, leadership 80. All right, that's not too bad. So with that, you know, it's not terrible. But it's still a penalty you have to kind of deal with. And your giant units are still giants, and they don't get some way to clear out groups of units, which is kind of like the weakness of big dudes. Nonetheless, these guys are pretty effective during expansion. You can recruit them much more effectively than most nations with units like these can, because you have a site that produces 100 resources at the start of the game, right? And they're much more heavily armored than any other giants, I believe, that don't depend on a mechanic, right? Like Nephil giants in Cold 3, I believe, are as or more heavily armored. But these guys don't care about temperature. They're heavily armored all the time, and their stat line is pretty okay with their 12 attack and 13 defense, so they're going to be able to block with their shield fairly often. They've got great morale and good magic resistance. And yeah, they're also only size 4 instead of size 5, which means that you can mix them with your hoplites, right? And have a hoplite meshed in there with them, which puts them in a little bit of a better situation, although it doesn't matter as much as it did in Dominions 4. Yeah. So, what's my takeaway here? I don't think the nation is actually very good. So, how to sum this up? Their troop line is kind of neat, but I didn't mention this guy because he's not really too much worth mentioning. It's kind of cool, right? Cool, right? You got this guy in a fucking loincloth, like just some fucking sexy athlete dude who throws discuses at people, but he's only got 4 of them, right? They think they're pretty good, but he's only got 4 of them and he costs 30 gold. It's too expensive. It's like, these guys could be an interesting unit late in the game if you cast like Iron Skin on them, right? That's what I'll say about these guys. Otherwise, not super cool, in my opinion. Excuse me. So, yeah, the takeaway here is that they seem to have good units, but they kind of really don't, because you've got these really heavy infantry, but they all have problems, right? Like giant infantry have a tendency to like have this like weak elite unit weakness of like, well, if someone spams lightning strike at you, they're not super good. If someone uses a spell that increases fatigue on the battlefield, they're not super good. That sort of thing. So they have that kind of weakness that is inherent to such units. They still have their uses, but then you've got your human infantry that are good, yes, but they're also slaves with terrible morale, and so you're like terrible enough morale that like routing is a serious issue that you need to work to deal with, probably. Now, if they have some other strength to like make this less of a problem, I might be a little happier. Maybe if their like good leadership commander had like 120 leadership or Taskmaster 3 or something pretty great like that. But they don't really. And they're just like kind of okay. And then they don't have good off-cap mages, which really puts you in like a economic pickle, right? So your economy is going to be shittier than it should be for your scales because of the fort's increased unrest penalty that you have as a nation, and your mages are really fucking expensive for what you get. You're also super hardcore cap locked because like all your mages that are good, like you got the Polemarch, the Archon, Polemarch? Ah, fuck. Okay, the Archon and the Basilius, and the Elder Cyclops, all in your capital, right? And you probably only want like one of these 2 guys, right? Like, yeah, Basilios, you probably almost don't need him. I don't know, maybe you just want the Elder Cyclops all the time, actually. But I mean, it creates this situation where actually, if one of these guys was off cap, like, especially this guy, because he's got like this random 2, right? So 3 earth, 3 fire, or 2 air, yes please, 295 gold. It's a bit pricey, but that's okay. If he was off cap, I would be very happy to recruit him off capital over the other options we've got, at least some of the time. This guy, if you could recruit him off capital, the fact that he's overshadowed as a thug option by the Elder Cyclops would be much less of an issue. Of course, the Elder Cyclops is slow to recruit instead of fast to recruit, but you're probably going to be able to get enough of them anyway. So yeah, you're a little too cap locked, and your troop line is kind of prone to countering, right? Like, what's that one called? Like not Ironbane. I don't know if that affects bronze armor anyway, but Burden of Stones? Burden of Stones, great spell to counter this nation with. They have some magic resist, but cast it 2 or 3 times, it's going to have a pretty big effect. The human troops will be crippled by it, like, really quickly, too. Any of the fear spells, or like the air death, battlefield fear enchantment, absolutely going to wreck your shit if you're using human units, which you probably want to do because you need them to, like, fill up some space on the battlefield so that your giants can't be easily targeted by evocations and stuff, right? So I don't know. They're really cool flavor-wise, though. Actually, one of my favorite nations flavor-wise in a while. I hope they get some small balance changes. Like, I'd love it if the force increase unrest thing was like negated by 3 order and 20 plus PD. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe kind of like boring flavor-wise, because then you just take 3 order all the time, right? And it's not a problem, but then it wouldn't be a problem when you don't really need a nation where you don't really need more problems. Or if one of our cap locked guys, like, and if the Archon and the Polemarch were off cap, and like the Basilius guy, like, got something else good for him, like maybe if he was a priest 3, so he could take thrones or something, so you have like some reason to recruit him instead of this guy. All right, that's some more better options, right? Epiphores are, I mean, I don't know what I would do with the Duronites anyway, but Durantes? It's either Duronites or Durante. I think it's Durante. I don't know if I'd do anything with them anyway, but the Epiphores would still be good research monkeys, and the Polemarch would be a discount, like a kind of a crappy thug. Maybe send 2 of them together into a province, right? With no items. Yeah, there you go. The Archon is a good battle mage, because he just get every single path is useful for battle magic. All right, there we go. You know, that's what I would like to see from a balance perspective. However, they're a fun nation to play anyway. I might play them in a... I don't know if I would say I'd play them in a multiplayer game. I feel like I might get wrecked too hard. I wouldn't get wrecked early on, though, at least, because you can still just recruit the hoplites, and it's pretty okay. All right, well, that is dragged on quite long enough. I think it's a very cool nation flavor-wise, not necessarily a very good one compared to other nations, especially in the early age, that can do lots of spooky shit that will, just really ruin your day, especially when they've got like 3 in a magic path at most, I think, without a 10% random, and that's really low for the early age, right? You've got nations with like 4 and 5 in magic paths on the regular. Yeah, I don't know. And there's some really useful stuff you can do with those big spikes in magic paths. And anyway, feel like they're a little out of place in the early age, or they could just use a little bit. They could use a little bit of extra something. All right, Yakri out.